Cloud House Cafe in Stow in the south of Scotland, and every week I read a book, or some of a book. We go through a book. Currently Moby Dick by Herman Melville, which is out of copyright, which means I can read it. Hope that dog's not going to be too loud. Hope you can hear me properly. Let me know if you can't. Yes, so chapter 72. I'm really enjoying Moby Dick, actually. I really love the way it's written. Some of the language in it is really good. So I've got a hot chocolate coming upstairs momentarily. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully we're on this microphone. We'll see anyway. So chapter 72 is The Monkey Rope. The Monkey Rope. In the tumultuous business of cutting in and attending to a whale, there is much running backwards and forwards among the crew. Now hands are wanted here, and then again hands are wanted there. There is no staying in any one place, for at one and the same time everything has to be done everywhere. It is much the same with him who endeavours the description of the scene. We must now retrace our way a little. It was mentioned that upon first breaking ground in the whale's back, the blubber hook was inserted into the original hole there cut by the spade of the mates. But how did so clumsy and weighty a mass as that same hook get fixed in that hole? It was inserted there by my particular friend Keekeg, whose duty it was, as harpooner, to descend upon the monster's back for the special purpose referred to. But in very many cases, circumstances require that the harpooner shall remain on the whale till the whole flensing or stripping operation is concluded. The whale, be it observed, lies almost entirely submerged, excepting the immediate parts operated upon. So down there, some 10 feet below the level of the decks, the poor harpooner flounders about, half on the whale and half in the water, as the vast mass revolves like a treadmill beneath him. On the occasion in question, Keekeg figured in the Highland costume, a shirt and socks, in which to my eyes at least he appeared to uncommon advantage, and no one had a better chance to observe him, as will presently be seen. Interesting. Being the savage's bowsman, that is the person who pulled the bow oar in the boat, the second one from forward, it was my cheerful duty to attend upon him while taking that hard scrabble upon the dead whale's back. You have seen Italian organ boys holding a dancing ape by a long cord. Just so, from the ship's steep side, did I hold Keekeg down there in the sea, by what is technically called in the fishery a monkey rope, attached to a strong strip of canvas belted round his waist. It was a humorously perilous business for both of us, for before we proceeded further, it must be said that the monkey rope was fast at both ends, fast to Keekeg's broad canvas belt, and fast to my narrow leather one. So that, for better or for worse, we two, for the time, were wedded, and should poor Keekeg sink to rise no more, then both usage and honour demanded that instead of cutting the cord, it should drag me down in his wake. So then, an elongated Siamese ligature united us. Keekeg was my own inseparable twin brother, nor could I any way get rid of the dangerous liabilities which the hempen bond entailed. That's a good phrase, the hempen bond. So, strongly and metaphysically did I conceive of my situation then, that while earnestly watching his motions, I seemed distinctly to perceive that my own individuality was now merged in a joint stock company of two, that my free will had received a mortal wound, and that another's mistake or misfortune might plunge innocent me into unmerited disaster and death. Therefore, I saw that here was a sort of interregnum in Providence, for its even-handed equity never could have sanctioned so gross an injustice. And yet, still further pondering, while I jerked him now and then, and from between the whale and the ship, which would threaten to jam him, still further pondering, I say, I saw that the situation of mine was the precise situation of every mortal that breathes, only in most cases he, one way or another, has this Siamese connection with a plurality of other mortals. If your banker breaks, you snap. If your apothecary by mistake sends you poison in your pills, you die. True, you may say that by exceeding caution you may possibly escape these and the multitudinous other evil chances of life. But handle Keekag's monkey rope heedfully as I would, sometimes he jerked it so that I came very near sliding overboard. Nor could I possibly forget that, do what I would, I only had the management of one end of it. I have hinted that I would often jerk poor Keekag from between the whale and the ship, where he would occasionally fall, from the incessant rolling and swaying of both. But this was not the only jamming jeopardy he was exposed to. Unappalled by the massacre made upon them during the night, the sharks now freshly and more keenly allured by the before-pent blood which began to flow from the carcass, the rabid creatures swarmed round it like bees in a beehive. And right in among these sharks was Keekag, who often pushed them aside with his floundering feet. Nothing altogether incredible, were it not that, attracted by such prey as a dead whale, the otherwise miscellaneously carnivorous shark will seldom touch a man. It's interesting. Interesting to say that. Nevertheless, it may well be believed that since they have such a ravenous finger in the pie, it is deemed but wise to look sharp upon them. Accordingly, besides the monkey rope, with which I now and then jerked the poor fellow from too close a vicinity to the maw of what seemed a peculiarly ferocious shark, he was provided with still another protection. Suspended over the side in one of the stages, Tashtigo and Dagu continually flourished over his head a couple of keen whale spades, wherewith they slaughtered as many sharks as they could reach. This procedure of theirs, to be sure, was very disinterested and benevolent of them. They meant Keekag best business, I admit, but in their hasty zeal to befriend him, and from the circumstance that both he and the sharks were at times half hidden by the blood-muddied water, those incessant spades of theirs would come nearer amputating a leg than a tail. But poor Keekag, I suppose, straining and gasping there with that great iron hook, poor Keekag, I suppose, only prayed to his Yojo and gave up his life into the hands of his gods. Well, well, my dear comrade and twin brother, thought I, as I drew in and then slacked off the rope to every swell of the sea, what matters it after all? Are you not the precious image of each and all of us men in this wailing world? That unsounded ocean you gasp in is life, those sharks your foes, those spades your friends, and what between sharks and spades you are in a sad pickle and peril, poor lad. Interesting. But courage. There is good cheer in you, Keekag, for now, as with blue lips and bloodshot eyes, the exhausted savage at last climbs up the chains and stands all dripping and involuntarily trembling over the side. The steward advances and with a benevolent consolatory glance hands him what? Some hot cognac? No, hands him, ye gods, hands him a cup of tepid ginger and water. Ginger, do I smell... Sorry, this is... no, it's Stubb. Ginger, do I smell ginger? Suspiciously asks Stubb, coming nearer. Yes, this must be ginger, peering into the as yet untasted cup. Then, standing as if incredulous for a while, he calmly walked towards the astonished steward, slowly saying, Ginger? Ginger? And will you have the goodness to tell me, Mr. Doughboy, where lies the virtue of ginger? Ginger? Is ginger the sort of fuel you use, Doughboy, to kindle a fire in the shivering cannibal? Ginger? What the devil is ginger? Sea coal? Firewood? Lucifer matches? Tinder, gunpowder, what the devil is ginger, I say, that you offer this cup to our poor Keekag here? There is some sneaking temperance society movement about this business, he suddenly added, now approaching Starbuck, who had just come from forward. Will you look at that hannikin, sir? Smell of it, if you please. That, then watching the mate's countenance, he added, the steward, Mr. Starbuck, had the face to offer that kernel and jalap to Keekag there, this instant off the whale. Is that steward an apothecary, sir? And may I ask whether this is the sort of bitters by which he blows back into the life of a half-drowned man. I trust not, said Starbuck. It is poor enough stuff. Aye, aye, steward, cried Starbuck. We'll teach you to drug a harpooner. None of your apothecary's medicine here. You want to poison us, do you? You have got out insurances on our lives and want to murder us all and pocket the proceeds, do you? It was not me, cried Doughboy. It was Aunt Charity that brought the ginger on board and bade me never give it the harpooners any spirits, but only this ginger job, so she called it. Ginger job, you gingery rascal. Take that and run along to you to the lockers and get something better. Hope I do no wrong, Mr. Starbuck. It is the captain's orders. Grog for the harpooner on a whale. Enough, cried Starbuck. Only don't hit him again, but, I never hurt when I hit, except when I hit a whale or something of that sort, and this fellow's a weasel. What were you saying about, sir? Only this, go down with him, and get what thou wantst thyself. When Stubb reappeared, he came with a dark flask in one hand and a sort of tea-caddy in the other. The first contained strong spirits and was handed to tea-keg. The second was Aunt Charity's gift, and that was freely given to the waves. Shall we have another chapter, I think? Another chapter, I reckon. We're hearing okay? Let me know if there's any problem with the sound. Do tell me. Looks like hot chocolate coming. So, chapter 73. Stubb and Flask kill a right whale and then have a talk over him. It must be borne in mind that all this time we have a sperm whale's prodigious head hanging to the Pequod's side. Thank you. But we must let it continue hanging there a while till we can get a chance to attend to it. For the present other matters press, and the best we can do now for the head is to pray heaven the tackles may hold. Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at that. Lovely. Now, during the past night and forenoon, the Pequod had gradually drifted into a sea, which, by its occasional patches of yellow brit, gave unusual tokens of the vicinity of right whales, a species of the leviathan, that but few supposed to be at this particular time lurking anywhere near. And though all hands commonly disdained the capture of those inferior creatures, and though the Pequod was not commissioned to cruise for them at all, and though she had passed numbers of them near their crozettes without lowering a boat, yet now that a sperm whale had been brought alongside and beheaded, to the surprise of all, the announcement was made that a right whale should be captured that day, if opportunity allowed. Nor was this long wanting. Tall spouts were often seen to leeward, and two boats, Stubbs and Flasks, were detached in pursuit. Pulling farther and farther away, they at last became almost invisible to the men at the masthead, and suddenly in the distance they saw a great heap of tumultuous white water, and soon after news came from aloft that one or two of those boats might be fast. An interval passed, and the boats were in plain sight, in the act of being dragged right towards the ship by the towing whale. So close did the monster come to the hull that at first it seemed that if he meant it malice, but suddenly going down in a maelstrom, within 3 rods of the planks, he wholly disappeared from view as if diving under the keel. "Cut! Cut!" was the cry from the ship to the boats, which for one instant seemed on the point of being brought into a deadly dash against the vessel's side. But having plenty of line yet in the tubs, and the whale not sounding very rapidly, they played out an abundance of rope, and at the same time pulled with their might so as to get ahead of the ship. For a few minutes the struggle was intensely critical, for while they still slackened out, tightened the line in one direction, and still plied their oars with the other, the contending strain threatened to take them under. But it was only a few feet in advance they sought to gain, and they stuck to it until they did gain it, when instantly a swift tremor was felt running like lightning along the keel, as the strained line scraping beneath the ship suddenly rose to view under her bows, snapping and quivering, so to flinging off its drippings, that the drops fell like bits of broken glass on the water, while the whale beyond also rose to sight, and once more the boats were free to fly. But the fagged whale abated his speed and blindly altered his course, went round the stern of the ship, towing the two boats after him, so that they performed a complete circuit. Delicious. Meantime, they hauled more and more upon their lines till close flanking him on both sides. Stubb answered Flask with a lance for lance, and thus round and round the Pequod the battle went, while the multitudes of sharks that had before swum round the sperm whale's body rushed to the fresh blood that was spilled, thirstily drinking at every new gash, as the eager Israelites did at the new bursting fountains that poured forth from the smitten rock. Another biblical reference there. At last the spout grew thick, and with a frightful roll and vomit he turned upon his back into a corpse. While the two headsmen were engaged in making fast cords to his flukes, and in other ways getting the mass in readiness for towing, some conversation ensued between them. "I wonder what the old man wants with his lump of foul lard," said Stubb, not without some disgust at the thought of having to do with so an ignoble a leviathan. "Wants with it," said Flask, coiling some spare line in the boat's bow. "Did you never hear that the ship which but once has a sperm whale's head hoisted on her starboard side, and at the same time a right whale on the larboard, did you never hear, Stubb, that ship can never afterwards capsize?" Interesting. Why not? I did not know, but I heard the Gambodge, a ghost of a Fidala, saying so, and he seems to know about all ship's charms, but I sometimes think he'd charm the ship to no good at last. I don't half like that chap, Stubb. Did you ever notice how that tusk of his is sort of curved into a snake's head, Stubb? Sink him! I never look at him at all, but if I ever get a chance of a dark night and he's standing hard by the bulwarks and no one by, look down there, Flask, pointing to the sea with a peculiar motion of both hands. Aye, will I. Flask, I take that Fidala to be the devil in disguise. Do you believe that cock and bull story about his having been stowed away on board ship? He's the devil, I say. The reason why you don't see his tail is because he tucks it up out of sight. He carries it coiled away in his pocket, I guess. Blast him. Now that I think of it, and he's always wanting oakum to stuff in the toes of his boots. He sleeps in his boots, don't he? He hasn't got any hammock, but I've seen him lay of nights in a coil of rigging. Oh, no doubt it's because of his cursed tail. He coils it down, you see, in the eye of the rigging. What's that old man have so much to do with him for? Striking up a swab or a bargain, I suppose. A bargain? About what? Why, do you see, the old man is hard bent after that white whale, and the devil there is trying to come round him and get him to swap away his silver watch or his soul or something of the sort, and then he'll surrender Moby Dick. Oh, pooh, Stubb, you're skylarking now. How can Fidala do that? There's a fly just come in the window. It's over there. Where was it? I don't know, Flask, but the devil is a curious chap and a wicked one, I tell you. What they say is how he went sauntering into the old flagship once, switching his tail about devilish easy and gentlemanlike, and inquiring if the old governor was at home. Well, he was at home and asked the devil what he wanted. The devil, switching his hooves up, and says, "I want John." "What for?" says the old governor. "What business is that of yours?" says the devil, getting mad. "I want to use him." "Take him," said the governor. And by the Lord, Flask, if the devil didn't give John the Asiatic cholera before he got through with him, I'll eat this whale in one mouthful. But look sharp, ain't you all ready there? Well then, pull ahead, and let's get the whale alongside. Let's drink this hot chocolate before the fly comes. It's very nice. I think I remember some such story as you were telling, said Flask, when at last the two boats were slowly advancing with their burden towards the ship. But I can't remember where. 3 Spaniards? Adventures of those 3 bloody-minded soldados? Did I read it there, Flask? I guess you did. No, never saw such a book. Never heard of it though. But tell me, Stubb, do you suppose that the devil you was speaking of just now was the same as you say as on board the Pequod? Am I the same man that helped kill this whale? Doesn't the devil live forever? And whoever heard that the devil was dead? Did you see any such person wearing mourning for the devil? And if the devil has a latchkey to get into the Admiral's cabin, don't suppose he can crawl into a porthole? Tell me that, Mr. Flask. How old do you suppose Vidalia is, Stubb? Do you see the mainmast there, pointing to the ship? Well, that's the figure 1. Now take all the hoops in the Pequod's hold and string them all along in a row with that mast. For aught, do you see? Well, that wouldn't begin to be Vidalia's age. Nor all the coopers in creation could show hoops enough to make aught enough. But see here, Stubb, I thought a little boasted just now that you might give Vidalia a sea toss, if you give a good chance. Now, he's so sold as all those hoops of yours come to. If he is going to live forever, what good will it do to pitch him overboard? Tell me that. Give him a ducking anyhow. But he'd crawl back. Duck him again and keep ducking him. Suppose he should take it into his head to duck you, though. Yes, and not drown you. What then? I should like to see him try it. I'd give him a pair of black eyes that he wouldn't dare to show his face in the Admiral's cabin again for a long while. Let alone come down in the orlop there, where he lives, and hereabouts on the upper decks where he sneaks so much. Damn the devil, Flass. So you suppose I'm afraid of the devil? Who's afraid of him except the old governor, who doesn't dares catch him and put him in double derbies as he deserves? But let him go about kidnapping people, and signed a good bond with him, that all the people the devil kidnapped he'd roast for him, and there's a governor. Do you suppose Vidalia wants to kidnap Captain Ahab? Do I suppose it? You'll know before long, Flask. I am going now to keep a sharp lookout on him, and if I see anything very suspicious going on, I'll take him by the nape of his neck and say, look here, Beelzebub, don't you do it, and if he makes any fuss, by the Lord, I'll grab him into his pocket for his tail, take it to the captain, and give him such a retching and heaving that his tail will come short off at the stump. Do you see? And then I rather guess when he finds himself docked in that queer fashion, he'll sneak off without the poor satisfaction of feeling the tail between his legs. I like that. And what will you do with the tail, Stubb? Do with it and sell it for an ox whip when we get home. What else? Now, do you mean to say, and have been saying all along, Stubb? Mean or no mean, here we are at the ship. The boats were hailed to tow the whale on the larboard side, where the fluke chains and other necessities were already prepared for skewering him. Didn't I tell you so? Said Flask. Yes, you'll soon see this right whale's head is hoisted up opposite the Parmacetes. In good time, Flask proved true. Nice. As before, the Pequod steeply leaned over towards the sperm whale's head by now. And now, by the counterpoise of both heads, she regained her even keel, though sorely strained, you may well believe. So when on one side you hoist in Locke's head, you go over that way by now and hoist the other, hoist in Kant's, and you will come back, but in very poor plight. Thus, some minds forever keep trimming boat. Oh, ye foolish, throw all these thunderheads overboard, and then you will float light and right. In disposing of the body of a right whale when brought alongside the ship, the same preliminary proceedings commonly take place as in the case of a sperm whale. Only in the latter instance the head is cut off whole, but in the former the lips and tongue are separately removed and hoisted on deck, with all the well-known black bone attached to what is called the crown piece. But nothing like this in the present case has been done. The carcasses of both whales had dropped astern, and the head-laden ship not a little resembled a mule carrying a pail of overburdened panniers. Meantime, Fedallah was calmly eyeing the right whale's head, and ever and anon glancing from the deep wrinkles there to the lines in his own hand. And Ahab chanced so to stand that the Parsee occupied his shadow, while if the Parsee's shadow was there at all, it seemed only to blend with and lengthen Ahab's. As the crew toiled on, the Laplandish speculations were bandied among them concerning all these passing things. End of chapter 73. Again, a kind of another slightly gruesome. I thought it was going to be a bit more gruesome there when they were talking about how to cut off the head and so on. So I thought it was going to get a little bit more like the last couple of chapters ago. Hello, Senator, and hello, Pat as well. Just joining as we're just finishing that chapter 73. Two good chapters again, I think. Not as much action as previously, but again, more biblical references and more talk of the devil, interestingly. Talk of the devil there, Fedallah. Interesting. I think we're about done. It's about 2:30. So I'll finish my delicious hot chocolate in this lovely cup. And I'll get off, and as it's sunny, we might go and see if I can do that Olympics theme broadcast this afternoon, which I want to do when I get in, probably this afternoon. I do drink coffee, but this is hot chocolate. See it? This is hot chocolate. I was having a cappuccino earlier with my toasty. Right, but I'll see you. Yes, in about 12 hours I'll see you in the phone box tonight for the phone box quiz. And like I say, maybe that HAPS Olympics broadcast this afternoon, we'll see. Or tomorrow or whenever. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later on. Have a nice Tuesday.